Hi, so welcome back to Real Auto Reports. Today we have the Real First Impressions video edition on this 2014 Range Rover Sport. Now this Range Rover Sport is all new for 2014, so there's a lot to cover, so let's get to it. All right, so from the front, the thing you'll notice about 2014 is that this is all new. It's more curvaceous, it has some more sweeping lines, and it looks more like the larger or more luxurious Range Rover as opposed to the Range Rover Sport. This does have more rake angles on it, so it has sharper cuts and designs in it to make it look sportier and be faster. It also has some cool LED headlight accents here, so your running lights that come right around and then circle the turn signal there, and they look really cool in the evening. In fact, if we were to hit the lights there, you can see that you also have adaptive high-intensity discharge headlights that move with you when you turn the wheel. Some great features they've added to the Range Rover I also like the fact that you have fog lights, you have front cameras. There's two of them, so you can see the approach angles at a junction or off-road. It's a great feature to have on a vehicle like this. Park assist, and pretty much everything you could imagine is available. You also have adaptive cruise on this HSE model. Now, what does HSE mean? It means it's the step up from the base SE model now, and that is different from previous generations. HSE Lux is more comparable, that was what we looked at in previous generations, to what we have here in just the HSE. You step up from this to the supercharged version and then the autobiography. And we'll talk about that more in our real video. But for now, this is the new front nose. And the other thing I want to point out are these vents up here on the hood. They're more in the shape of the side vents that were on the previous generation, but you still have side vents on this one. So they've added a little bit more interest and detail into this. It's kind of one of those things you either like or you don't. So let's go take a look at the side and see what else is new. All right, so from the side, again, pretty dramatic difference from the previous generation because it is a more sculpted, and I think it's a more sporty looking vehicle. It is different though, and if you like the previous generation like I did, you have to kind of get used to this one. But it does have some of the similar design accents here, like the lower skirting here and the dimensional nature of that. You do have power fold-in mirrors, touch entry on the handles, so you do have your smart key, so you just keep that in your pocket or your purse and you can get in and out. You can see also here coming around from the back that they have really integrated these rear tail lights into the design of the vehicle, so they follow this midline detail here that also runs through the door handles, and I just feel like they've put a lot of thought into the design and sculpting of this next generation Land Rover Range Rover Sport. Now also take note that we have the 20-inch 5-spoke, well, they're kind of a 5-spoke design with multi-spoke, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. They're 20-inch wheels, which is an upgrade from the SE model. You have your color keyed mirrors, typical on a Sport. You have your turn signals in the mirror, and you also have blind spot monitoring. And I love the feature where when you lock the vehicle, the mirrors fold in. It's great for a larger vehicle, especially in tight parking spaces, either on the street or in parking garages. Helps save the, well, paint on those body colored mirrors. You unlock them and they fold back out for you, and you don't even have to think about it. So it's a pretty cool feature and I like it. Now, there's some more details we need to show you, like the raising and lowering of the suspension. It does have adaptive suspension, and you can see here it's in accessible mode and is much lower. You can see how short this distance from the wheel to the top of the wheel arch is. This will raise up, and then it'll also go to an off-road height for low-speed off-road. So let's go take a look at the back and see what's new out there. All right, so from the back, it's a pretty significant difference from the previous generation. As I said, the taillights are much more sculpted into the design. You can see that it's a pretty flush back. There's not a big bumper overhang back here. It's nice and tucked in, very racy looking. They've given this Sport a much more sporty look, if you will. Before it was on a steel ladder frame and the steel body and all of that. Now you've got the aluminum underpinning, aluminum structure and body, and it makes this vehicle lighter, but also allows them, I believe, to shape it better and to give it this more interesting design for the next generation. I love the previous gen, so it's nice when you see it in person, you go, wow, I like that one too, and that one's the one that we're going to keep probably for the next 8 years or so, if you think about it, with just a slight refresh in the middle. Now, it does have some great features like dual exhaust, rear park assist, rear camera. You've got your wiper tucked up under the rear spoiler, which helps for drag coefficient and downforce. And of course, you have your automatic lift gate, which is a great feature so that you could get into it. Now, the thing that it doesn't do is it doesn't do any of the fun stuff where you swing your feet under it, which you're going to see in the new 2015 Escalades, which are going to be a big competitor to some of these high-end Range Rovers that, you know, when it's $79,000, you have a lot of high-end options to look at. But the other thing that's interesting about this new one is that this has a nice cargo area, good load height at the accessible height that we have it lowered to, but also you can get a third row, which you couldn't get in previous generations. We don't have that option in this one here in the fleet, but it is available, so that's good to know. You can also now close this tailgate with the key, which I really like. You may have been able to do it in previous generations. I can't remember, to be honest with you, but I love when I find these things as we're testing them and I go, that's a usable feature, because you can be getting in the car and go click with the key in your hand, get in, buckle your kids in, all of that, and then get on down the road. So some great features in this. Let's go check out the interior and then under the hood. All right, so there's a lot to cover on the inside of a Range Rover Sport. Of course, you have a lot of features like a 3-stage memory seat here on the lower part of the door. You have your window controls, of course, up on the top of the door, and your mirror controls just like previous generations. The first thing you're going to notice when you sit into one of these cars is that this ledge that used to be very flat and kind of like an armrest, I really liked that in the previous gen, is a little more sloped and angled, so you can still rest your arm on it. It's just a little different from previous generations. We have the two-tone interior here with the black and the ivory. We have the perforated seats here because we do have the cooled and heated front seat option, and then the heated rear seats. You can get available cooled seats as well if you step up another grade, but trust me, you can get these cars to 100K if you try now. You also have steering wheel controls and adaptive cruise on this vehicle, along with blind spot monitoring and park assist and the self-parallel park. So a lot of really cool things in this vehicle. 16-way power front seats with memory on both sides, I should mention, and the dual climate control. All great things. Of course, you have your in-dash entertainment system with navigation, climate control functions there as well. You've got your your cameras for the front view so that you can see when you're parking. Just a host of features, and I should mention the panoramic roof that's up on top so you can look out and see. It goes clear back past the heads of the rear passengers, so it is a big piece of glass, and you can even get different color roof options to accent the panoramic roof. This one has just this more standard color, but there's a lot of personalization that can go on in these Range Rovers. Let's take a look under the hood. All right, so under the hood, you're going to find this big black piece of plastic. And what it says is Range Rover Supercharged, because now every Range Rover Sport that you buy will have a supercharged engine. And it's kind of interesting. This is the new V6, 3-liter V6, I should say, supercharged, just like we saw in the Jaguar XJL all-wheel drive. So this is an engine that Jaguar owners are going to be familiar with, and it has now found its way into the Range Rover Sport. 340 horsepower, 0 to 60 in about 6.9 seconds. And what's really remarkable, along with the stop-start technology for the eco functions, is that this vehicle will go 0 to 60 about 0.3 faster than the previously naturally aspirated V8 that had 375 horsepower. Now, some of that's because it's dropped 800 pounds with the aluminum structure and body. So I like this motor, but the one thing that's missing just a wee little bit from the previous gen is that sound of the V8. So you might have to go up to the V8 Supercharged. Let's go see how it drives out on the road. All right, so from a first impressions driving perspective, what do we think about this Range Rover Sport? Well, it is definitely a neat vehicle. It is definitely a vehicle that has a lot of cachet, has good power right off the mark, and since we have the supercharged V6, it's pretty peppy, has good mid-range, and
you know, I like the new electric steering that is different from the previous generation. The vehicle does feel lighter and feels like it drives so, well, I don't know, sportier. It feels flatter through the corners. It feels like it has a sportier personality than the previous generation. And I guess that's what you really want to see from something called a Range Rover Sport. But it is pretty different than the previous generation, and that's just something that if you're switching up, you're going to have to do some compare and contrast, because it is a vehicle that has gotten a renewed sense of purpose and a renewed lease on life. And so, well, it's going to be a new feeling when you get into it and drive it. I actually like it. I hope I like it more as I drive it over the next little while. So make sure you return for a real video, the real review, and we'll have the wrap up coming up next.
So that's the Real First Impressions video edition on the 2014 Range Rover Sport. Of course, it is by Land Rover, and it is going to be their, well, all new, aluminum-bodied and aluminum-framed vehicle in the SUV market. It's going to have a sportier flair than the previous generation because it's lost about 800 pounds. It's also going to be more expensive than the previous generation. If you go back and look at the blue 2013 or the red 2012 we looked at, you will see that the price has jumped almost $10,000 as tested. Now, there are a lot more features on this new 2014, even in the HSE package, but it's hard to do apples to apples comparisons because they've changed the model structure. They've also changed the powertrain and just the general options that are available. You can now get this with an optional third row, and it only comes with this new 3-liter V6 Supercharged, which you will have seen in our Jaguar XJL all-wheel drive review. Same engine, 340 horsepower, and no longer can you get the naturally aspirated V8. No, you can only get the V8 Supercharged when you go up to the Supercharged Range Rover Sport. So there are some differences in the packages, and there's some differences in the powertrain options. The looks are super updated, and well, you'll have to find out more in our real video, the real review. I'm Jonathan McGrew, and with this about $79,000 Range Rover Sport, this is Real Auto Reports right here from Real Auto Ranch, and we'll see you down the road.